Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm joined by former Leicester City player Matt Piper and Fox's fan to get his insight ahead of the game on Saturday afternoon at the London Stadium. Matt, thank you for joining me.
No problem at all. Really looking forward to it.
Right, let's chat then. Let's start with your team, Leicester City. What do you make of your season so far?
Well, it's picked up a little bit. I was one calling for the manager's head after the first 5 or 6 games of the season. He didn't start very well at all. And it wasn't just based, I didn't just base that on the results that we had. I based that on his negativity, really. Obviously, Brendan wanted to bring in, 5 or 6 new players at the start of the season. The club didn't allow him to do that. They kept their purse strings well and truly tight. And Brendan literally threw all his toys out the pram at that. And that's how I felt at the start of the season, because I cover the games for the BBC, the Leicester games. So I see him a lot. I've seen his body language. And he's been brilliant for us for, nearly 3 seasons now. And at the start of this season, I seen a different Brendan Rodgers. So I thought there's no way he's pulling this back. And I didn't see where the next result was coming from. And then all of a sudden, he changed a few things tactically. As soon as the window shut and he knew he wasn't getting anyone, he started to be a little bit more positive. And the team started to respond. So, listen, West Ham's always a bogey team for us, but we are actually really in form at the minute.
This is sort of confirmation bias for me, because we've done our Leicester preview. And one thing I hate, I absolutely detest it, is the fact that the Premier League season and the transfer window overlap, that there is 3-4 Premier League games when the window's still going on. And I felt watching Leicester at the start of the season, it was just that uncertainty, because you had, Yuri was possibly going, was he not going? Fofana, practically, it felt like down tools to some extent. I think did you play, was it Arsenal away? He waved goodbye to the fans. He said, right, I'm off skis.
Yeah.
And you didn't even agree to deal with Chelsea at this point. And you said, cheerio. And I just thought, well, how's Rodgers meant to manage this? Because he can't bring in any replacements in until they leave, but they're not leaving yet. And you're trying to play football. So as a Leicester fan, do you feel that was, the biggest reason for your slow start?
Yeah, it definitely played a part in it. Exactly what you talk about there. It was really difficult for him. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was unfair of the club as well, because Brendan Rodgers, after we got beat in February of the cup season by Nottingham Forest, Brendan Rodgers came out after that game and he said, we need a refresh in the squad. The squad needs a new freshness to it. It needs 3, 4, 5, 6 players bringing in. And, the club allowed him to say that. So he said it, and then he continued saying it until the end of the season. And then on the first day of pre-season, the club told him, you're not getting any new players. So for me, as a former footballer, I'm thinking the manager is going to go absolutely crazy behind the scenes, out in front of the cameras. And I understand that. But you're getting paid £10 million a year. You can act like that for 2 weeks. And then when you realise that you're not getting any players, and even though the window was still open, which I agree with you is a little unfair, you've then got to batten down, especially when we're shipping five goals against Brighton, 6 goals against Tottenham, and we're getting beat by all these different teams, and we're at the foot of the table. At some point, you have to change the message, and you have to start taking it a more positive way that we've all been used to under Brendan Rodgers. And thankfully, before he got sacked, he started to do that, and he's really turned it around now. So massive credit to him.
Day 2 of 12 days of Hammers Chat Christmas offers, and it's the West Hammer Massive Hammers Chat, a relatively small mug for half price. Usually £10, but you can grab it for just a £5 today until about 8:30 tomorrow morning, then the offer is gone. You fancy getting your hands on one, head to the link in the description of this video or the pinned comments, add it to your basket, discount will automatically be applied. So you fancy getting one of these for a £5, get it today. I take it you're happy with your last month. Then what you said he's made some tweaks tactically in that. What was if there was, you had to pinpoint 1 or 2 major things that Rodgers has changed, what would it be?
So the biggest thing that he's done, and you'll see it in the game at the weekend, is when we attacked, the two fullbacks were going, Timothy Castagne on the right-hand side and James Justin on the left-hand side. And it was great going forward. We scored lots of goals, even in them opening games, and we looked a threat. But if we lost the ball higher in the pitch, in the transition, it really hurt us. And what he's done, Youri Tielemans now, who everyone knows has scored some brilliant goals lately from distance, he hasn't been joining in with the attacks. If you look at the goals that he scored recently, it's from, a second ball situation from a corner or a set piece. So now he sits in and he plays as a right back, really. Timothy Castagne goes forward. James Justin was staying in the left back position. And we just allow the players at the top end of the field to go and cause the damage. But when we lose the ball, we're more tight in transition and there's a better structure there. And that's why we've had 3 clean sheets in the last 4 games.
What's your hopes for the rest of the season then?
Well, it's always a difficult one with Leicester because when Brendan first came in, I said we'd get top 4. And I sort of called that out of nowhere. I just felt, I've watched Brendan for years. He's always been, a favourite manager of mine. And I thought with the players that he had and the excitement around Fofana, Maddison, obviously Vardy was still scoring goals at that point. I thought this manager could steer this team to top 4, and he nearly did it. The second season, I said it again, and he nearly did it again. And then this season, I said he was going to finish around 6th, 7th, because he didn't get them players that he wanted. And I still think that's a possibility. Listen, it's a stretch now because we're so far behind, but I still think it's a possibility for Leicester.
And what players should West Ham fans look out for on Saturday afternoon? Who's in form?
Harvey Barnes is in hot form. Obviously, James Maddison. I think it's going to be difficult for James Maddison because if I'm him and he's been waiting all this time to sort of get back in the England team, and he does, and it's for a World Cup, and this is the last game before you go, and he's seeing all these players dropping and, with injuries and all sorts. I think it's going to play on his mind. I really do. And maybe Declan Rice as well for West Ham. So that'll something that will have to be managed. But Maddison's literally, for me, and, hopefully without any Leicester bias, is the best midfielder in the Premier League currently. There's a few that I admire, but in the last 18 months, his sort of stats speak for itself. So he's going to be a big one to watch out for. Youri Tielemans, you will have, all you West Ham fans would have seen his goals recently. He scored some, tremendous goals. Jamie Vardy's just scored 2 in the week. Patson Daka always looks a threat. So we've got some real firepower at the top end of the pitch. And the good thing is, we're starting to keep clean sheets. So it's not a great time, really, to play Leicester.
Yeah, Danny Ward's discovered how to catch the ball in the last month or so. Do you know something? I laugh. I actually liked Danny Ward before he went to Leicester because I'm from Aberdeen, and he went on loan to Aberdeen from Liverpool, and he performed well in Liverpool. So we called him. It was like, oh, now we don't have the goalkeeper anymore. And when he went to Leicester, oh, that's a wise move. And then I did a video in the summer of if we needed a goalkeeper, who would we get? Because Aviola hadn't quite returned to West Ham at this point. And Ward was on my shortlist. And at the start of the season, he was playing terrible. And I thought, hope no one watches that video I've done. But in the last few weeks, I've redeemed myself thanks to Danny Ward's clean sheets. What about, where did you get Fast from? Because when I watched you this season, the 2 players that stood out for me, apart from Maddison and Barnes, has been Dewsbury Hall. I think is very underrated. And then Fast just looks, for every game I've watched, it looks incredible.
Yeah, came from the French league. We've got a good record in taking players from Ligue 1. Obviously, Fofana came in, and I was one that was sort of saying, if Fofana goes, it will be a nightmare because he is that good. Not had a great start to Chelsea, obviously got injured, but he will go on to be, one of the superstar defenders of world football. I'm pretty positive in that. And I just felt, when Walt Fast came, and I thought, nah, he looks all right. I thought he looked good in his first game. I covered that game at Tottenham. But if anyone sees him on the team sheet and the team are losing 6-2 on his debut, you're thinking, oh my God, he's had a nightmare. But he didn't make any mistakes in that game. He's good on the ball. He's good in the air. And the great thing about him is he didn't get beat at all in any 1v1s. I've still yet to see him get beat in a 1v1. The only time he sort of had a wobble up was in the Bournemouth game when we lost 2-1, and he sort of made a mistake in the second half of one of their goals. But he's come up against Kane, Son. He's performed brilliantly. And I'm starting to think, I understand now, if he was on Leicester's radar, why in the end, along with the money, of course, but why they let Fofana go.
Yeah, makes sense. Now let's talk about my team, West Ham. Then, what's your thoughts on West Ham?
Listen, I always dislike coming to West Ham, only because, especially in the last few years since David Moyes has been there, just because they're such a dangerous team and they always seem to open Leicester up. They like playing in that transition. We always seem to control the ball, especially when we're at the London Stadium. But then all of a sudden we give it away and they break so quickly. And we've had some disasters there over the last few years. But at the minute, I think, looking at it from the outside in, it looks a little bit of a struggle. You've obviously got some terrific players. I like Bowen. Declan Rice is a superstar, obviously. Scamacca's come in, looks decent, I think. Lanzini, Zuma. I've always liked Zuma, even though, we don't need to mention, what kind of animals he kicks. But I think he's a good player. And he sort of shored you up at the back since he come in. But they just seem in a little bit of a struggle at the minute. Similar to where Leicester were 3 or 4 games ago. But I do think that we'll turn it around. I think he's been brilliant since he's been there.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Moyes briefly then, because, like you said, obviously we've had back-to-back European campaigns, but this season we've started slowly, and there's been sort of complaints about the style of football that we play as well. And a lot of West Ham fans are seeing this game as, crucial as to whether Moyes could remain during the break or whether he should get sacked, because we've got this unique opportunity of the World Cup break that actually might be the perfect time to get a new manager in, because they've essentially got a pre-season, haven't they, before you kick off again. From the outsider looking in, what's your thoughts on David Moyes?
I have always liked David Moyes. I mean, I look at him when he came back to West Ham. I thought, he had a period out the game, didn't it? And I thought, all these new managers are coming into the game and playing, different style of football, a different brand of football. And I thought, having that feeling of, is he a bit turning into a little bit of one of them dinosaurs? When he comes back this time, he's going to try and use an old model and try and make it fit in the way that football's going now. I did think that this time. And he came back and he really proved me wrong. I thought he had fresh ideas. I thought, they were sort of signing players that were exciting, young, vibrant, fast, dynamic. And as I say, I always, the last 2 seasons since Moyes has been manager, I've not enjoyed going there. I've never thought, even when Leicester were flying at the top end of the table, I didn't think we'd get anything there. I think what's unfortunate for him, a couple of his top players have hit form at the start of this season. I've looked at Bowen this season. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's quite at the level he's been at of recent years. And when you've got players like him who are so dynamic and score so many goals, they're so important for the team. And if they're just sort of off it, even 5%, it can really bring the team down. And then obviously, Scamacca's come in, he's done all right, but Antonio was just that big bull up front that was sort of holding it up, throwing players all over the place. I remember when he scored, was it the hat-trick, or he scored 2 against Leicester? I don't know if it was last season or the season before. And it was just like, we can't deal with him. He's just throwing Johnny Evans all over the place. So I think a couple of players have either come out the team or lost a little bit of form, and maybe he don't know how to change it up from plan A, what he had when he first came in there.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about Bowen for this weekend. He's likely to start despite being out of form because what he does off the ball is what Moyes really rates. Because even though he's not producing offensively, he does the tracking back. He'll put a shift in. And I understand James Justin's injured, so I assume it'll be Luke Thomas at left back on Saturday then. So if he goes forward, we know Bowen will chase him. Bowen will get back and help out defensively. My concern with Bowen is this: in England World Cup squads come out now, and while he probably wasn't expecting to be in it, it's a bit of a blow for him because he was in the last England squad. He was in the Nations League at the end of the season as well, so he's been in and around Southgate's team now. And it's probably his shirt to lose, and he's lost it. He's lost that place at the World Cup, and that's got to be tough for a footballer, especially when he's going to see how happy Declan Rice is as well. Like, he's away to his first World Cup, and he's got to sit there and congratulate him and know that he had the chance, but because he's not been good enough this season, he ain't going. So I do worry, actually, just the toll it's going to take on him, I guess. Turning our attention to Saturday then, how do you see this one going?
Oof. Well, as I say, even though West Ham is just one of them places, I love going there as a fan, and I'm one of them guys actually that really likes the London Stadium. People have sort of said, I know. I mean, a lot of you guys don't like it, and a lot of Way fans don't like it. I really like it. I think, it's a little different for me because I sit in the commentary position, and it's a really good view of the ground, and a nice area of the ground. And even though they're not in great form, I'm still not looking forward to going there. But Leicester have looked really good the last 2 or 3 weeks. They changed the tactics against Man City, of course, but they even looked good in that game, and that was the only game we lost in the sort of last month or so. They won in midweek, changed the team. Vardy scores. Dak has been looking good. Maddison's going to the World Cup, so. If they score first, I think they'll win the game. I think West Ham have got to score first, and that may knock this newfound confidence that Leicester have found, and maybe West Ham will be able to get something out of it. But if Leicester score first, I think they'll win the game.
What's your score prediction?
3-1 Leicester.
Gonzo said that when we did our preview last night. Gonzo said 3-1 Leicester. I went for 2-0 Leicester. So there's a lot of confidence of a Leicester win for this weekend, which is good for you, not so good for me. But Matty, listen, thank you very much. I massively appreciate you joining me. If you guys have enjoyed this at home, please do drop a like on it by clicking the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new to Hammers Chat. We'll catch you in a bit.